Happy New Year, guys and girls, and welcome back to the Craft Beer channel from Brothers.
And from Johnny as well, and welcome to one of the big videos that we do every year in which we're going to give you the lowdown on where beer is going in 2022 in the UK and indeed throughout the world.
So we're not going to focus on specific beers necessarily, but styles and important kind of key touch points about beers in the industry.
Yeah, kind of the trends that are going to be happening, but using hopefully a couple of breweries that we think are going to do well this year, that have impressed us in 2021, and also some old classics, because as you'll find out as we go through the trends, the new guys aren't necessarily doing these things. So let's crack this first beer and have a little chat about how we did in 2021. So I'm cracking a table beer, which was one of our predictions. I can already smell it. It smells amazing. Pushes your glass. So yeah, we talked about table beer last year having a rise. Have you seen more table beers this year?
I have. I think, you know, we can all sort of do with drinking a bit more moderately, especially when we're potentially drinking at home on our own.
Yeah.
So a table beer is kind of a perfect thing, right? Quite often they're in a bigger size as well, potentially. So
yeah, it's nice to see 440ml at a reasonable ABV.
Exactly.
And yeah, I've seen loads of different breweries do it. I think Track already had a table beer before last year.
Yeah.
Last year we featured another brewery that we predicted that have done extremely well, which is Beak. And we went and we visited the brewery as well after that because we were so impressed. So you can watch that video. What's really interesting, so we have seen a big rise in table beers, but then even the UK government, who never get anything right, got this right. So they reworked the tax rules in the UK, which means that they've reduced the tax on low ABV beers. So now up to 1.2% entirely tax-free,
right,
and up to 3.5% a much lower tax band. So the UK government probably saw our video and went, that's a great idea. Let's lower the tax on these more reasonable ABVs. We also, we talked about Czech lager.
We did.
We took a year off in 2019. We didn't say it would be a year of the lager. And then we got straight back on that train because we've been burnt. Well, we've been burnt so many times, but we thought we'd give it a go, and we were wrong again, I think.
Wrong again. I mean, I think always, you know, there's a bit of a point in the summer when every beer drinker reaches their lager sort of like optimum moment where you just want to have a nice crisp lager, right?
Yeah, but it's not been a bigger wave, or maybe it's not been a bigger wave in summer, but it's maybe been a bit more constant.
Yeah.
You know, people like Utopian, Lost and Grounded, Don Zoco, they've all been doing a wonderful job in the UK of spreading that. And I think in the States, lager probably is having a bit of a moment. There's so many new lager breweries, so much more focus on Pilsner in particular, as sort of the ultimate reaction to like double New England IPAs.
Yes.
So I think it has kind of happened, but as always, and much like making a lager, it's been a bit slower. We also talked about unusual use of hops, more varied use of hops. And we used Overtone for that, which I think it was Chinook, and it was a juicy hop like Chinook and Citra or something like that, just saying people trying to reintroduce West Coast vibes and drying out their beers a little bit more because New England IPA has been very sticky and sweet.
Yeah.
We kind of got it right, but we were slightly wrong in that variation in hops. Yes, we've started using more West Coast traditional American hops, but also there have been lots of other changes in the hops that are being used. So this year we've seen a massive influx of American wet hops. So over in the States in the hop harvest, they're freezing hops, sending them to the UK, and lots of the, I guess you'd call them the hype bros, have been able to do wet hopped American beers in the UK, which is kind of nuts.
So that means we can have like sort of wet hop, green hop festivals in the UK now that feature American hops. That's crazy.
It's late stage capitalism at its finest.
Wow.
So yeah, there's definitely like people trying to find a way to still stand out in this market, even though we're all using, I think even this one's Citra Mosaic. Yes, Citra Mosaic, which is, you know, the trend that will never die. The final thing that we talked about last year was fewer adjuncts being used in our big stouts.
Yes.
I think, again, we were kind of right.
Yeah.
But also kind of wrong in that there's still loads of pastry stouts. You look at the wall here, we're at the beer shop in Hitchin, which is my new local bottle shop, and it's amazing. It's loaded with pastry stouts, but it's also loaded with loads of unadjuncted dark beers. So I think it's not so much that less pastry is being brewed, it's more that more non-pastry is being brewed.
Yeah, I think we would have had a big old tick if 2021 wasn't such an absolute shitter. So everybody needs some fun in their lives because of the pandemic. So I think pastry stouts are real fun.
Yeah.
If you're sitting at home, you know, maybe having a remote beer, It's fun. It's fun, right?
It's an experience,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah,
It's something
yeah.
you're going to remember. So, yeah, we didn't quite get that one right, but as we dive into these beers, we'll find that we're going to make another prediction about adjuncts that could well be wrong as well. Shall we dig into our big trends for 2022?
Come on then, Mystic Johnny.
Let's do it. So the first trend we're going to talk about is something I've written a little bit about last year in lots of different magazines, and it's Normcore. As a fashionista, Bradley, what can you tell me about Normcore?
I don't like it, Johnny. I hate everything it stands for.
I mean, look at your coat.
Yeah. I like flamboyant, jazzy outfits, as people have probably come to know. No, I don't hate Normcore. In terms of Normcore, it's kind of a throwback to sort of slacker vibes. You're not wearing, you might be wearing your dad or your granddad's sort of loose-fitted jumper, a fleece, practical wear that doesn't sort of shout and scream.
It's basically what I'm saying is that for the next year, we're going to be drinking the equivalent of like what Jeremy Corbyn wears. So we've done a lot of content in the last year all about bitters, porters, classic British styles, because we've been trying to raise the profile and sing the praises of cask, like
100%.
we did with Fuller's. And we genuinely think that this is going to be a little bit of a trend, both in the States and in the UK, and perhaps elsewhere as well. So it's a return to sessionable, perhaps a bit more malt forward, so a little bit more, kind of drinkable, sweet, warming, and also just, less aggressive, less in-your-face kind of brewing, and that's what British styles are so good at. Pintable, refreshing, comfortable. So
nothing too extreme. We're talking well-rounded stuff, like you're saying, sessionable. It's not angular.
Exactly that. And so we've got this beautiful kind of raisiny, datey, nutty, warming, almost kind of ESB, like strong bitter here from Rebellion. And it's a beautiful beer, particularly on a day like this, which is absolutely freezing.
Yeah.
This is the kind of beer that I think has been bringing comfort to people during some rough times. And it's something that we really want to champion, because obviously as pubs start to open, as bars start to open all around the world, this is the kind of stuff that you sell volume of, that you can have 3 or 4 of and have a wonderful night with your friends who you haven't seen since the P word began.
Oh, I mean, we touched a little bit upon malt forward styles in our sort of non-adjunct big dark beers, didn't we, for prediction for last year? So it's kind of an evolution of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen on the shelves here at the beer shop, we've seen lots and lots of bitters from all kinds. Like here, we've got one from Lost and Grounded, who are known for their lagers. We've seen lots of robust porters, dry stouts. Got a dry stout from Colonel there. There was a boxcar robust porter. There's so much kind of interest in traditional British brewing that just wasn't there 18 months ago. It's that new from the craft side. And obviously these guys have been doing it for years and years. But I think, the really good guys, the people like Hookie, Harvey's, JW Lee's, these guys at Rebellion, 5 Points in what they do, are going to see a little uptick of interest, I think, in the beers that they make, especially when it's served on cask. So the next trend we're going to talk about, we're going to go over to the States. Now, when the US, I wish we could, so when the US craft beer revolution really kicked off, there was a huge variety of beers being made, mostly inspired by like classic German brewing and traditional British brewing.
Yes.
So, the craft beer revolution started with homebrewers making British bitters, but using American hops, and that's kind of where American pale ale kind of came from. But along with that, we had kegged bitters, we had Hefeweizens, which became American wheats, and all these other different styles, American porters, stuff like that. And they kind of disappeared because of the IPA trend, just completely took over all of the taps, all of the canning lines, all of the brew houses. But recently, over here and in the States, we've started to see a return to what you could almost call traditional American brewing. So things like American brown ales, which is what we're about to try.
I feel you. So we're talking a bit of a comeback of like this sort of more variety, rather than just being dominated by the all-seeing, all-powerful IPAs.
Yeah.
We're talking about different styles.
Exactly that. It's
Right.
kind of like, do you remember like 10 years ago in craft beer, you go into a craft beer bar, or you in particular go into a tap room, and there would be 10 beers on tap, 10 different styles.
10 different styles, yeah.
Now it's
Wow.
10 beers on tap, 8 IPAs, an imperial stout and a lager.
Yeah.
But
You're
I've
right.
started to see this happen, and so we're about to drink an American brown ale,
Mental.
which I think the last time we had one was actually when we did our Irish video, and there was a great brown ale.
Yes.
that's going to be malt forward, really nutty, toasty, but it's also going to have perhaps some pine, some resin from the American hops. And again, a bit like the bitter, it's going to be really drinkable as a result of being a bit more malt forward. A little bit more balanced.
Cheers, I'll drink to that.
It's just so good. It's one of those styles that I'd never think to drink, but it's something that I do when I do craft beer channel research. I'm always having to try different styles. I always reach for IPA or lager like anybody else, but then I try a brown ale or a bitter and I'm like, oh my God, why do I keep going for these really hoppy numbers? This is also one of the brews that I think are going to have a really good year here in the UK. Elusive, we've featured them multiple times. We're good friends with the owner, Andy. They're also now Patreon.
Yeah.
But, Andy was a home brewer. And he still loves brewing all the styles he made as a home brewer. And I think that's why Elusive is starting to see a lot of success, because all these people that have been crying out for brown ales, for pumpkin beers, for dry stouts, all these kind of stuff that is kind of neglected by a lot of the breweries that are growing very fast, you can go to people like Elusive and you can get these classic styles that people fell in love with 10 years ago and miss a little bit. So this is one I know you're going to like, Bradley.
Go on.
We love a New England IPA.
Yes.
We've been championing it since 2015. But do you remember back in 2015 when the New England IPA, think about it, was exotic, unusual. It was probably coming over from the States. It was dead exciting.
We were drinking something else at that point, weren't
We were. What was it?
West Coast IPA, Johnny.
We didn't even call it West Coast IPA back then. It was just IPA, maybe American IPA.
Yeah.
And so we've actually had to rename it because New England IPA has become so dominant. We've had to find a new name for what was originally American IPA. But we have started to see all over the world a little shift towards New England, towards West Coast IPA. There we go.
But, it's a whole generation of new drinkers that have never experienced the wonder, the magnificence, the magnitude of an amazing Westie.
Yeah. They're not expecting bitterness. They're not expecting dryness.
Dankness.
They're not expecting dankness, pine, resin. Let's give this a go because I'm excited about it. I mean, the smell, it's like a pine forest, right?
Yeah, man. I'm immersed in the sort of Pacific Northwest.
Whoa, it's bitter, it's dry.
Takes you back to, right?
Yeah, there's malt character. There's kind of a honeyed, sweet, digestive biscuit malt character, which you just do not get in New England IPA.
No.
And it's right there. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that New England IPA's time is over. I'm not going to say the West Coast IPA is going to come back in any way that's going to challenge that. But what I think it is going to be is one of those taps of the 10. That you're going to have lots of New England options, and then there's going to be something there, something crisper, drier, more bitter, and full of those West Coast characters of pine, resin, weed, grapefruit, lemon, and caramel. So yeah, watch out for your West Coast beers. If you haven't tried them or you don't know what one is, we did a video all about it. You can watch that. Go out there and get punched in the face with some really dank hops.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I've just sat here for 5 minutes and told you that West Coast IPA is coming back.
Yes.
And now we're going to try a New England IPA.
Fantastic, Johnny.
The reason we're trying a New England IPA isn't because it's a New England IPA, but because it is kind of the biggest release, I think, from Queer Brewing project.
Right.
So Queer Brewing is run by the amazing Lily, an amazing beer writer, an amazing potter. Great potter. And a fantastic brewer. So she runs Queer Brewing. Lots of the profit that they make goes towards trans charities.
Yes.
And what I wanted to talk about with this one is the idea of beer doing good. So we had, I guess we could call it like an ethical reckoning in 2021 in craft beer. The work of Brianne Allen and the people that came off of it talking about the horrendous misogyny and prejudice that exists in craft beer, which I think lots of people knew about, but we thought it was all isolated cases. But it's another fucking pandemic within the craft beer industry, and we've hidden behind this idea of being independent and artisan and ethical, while basically nothing's really changed. People say good people drink good beer. It's not true. People drink beer, and lots of people are nasty. And so I think this is going to be a big step change, and breweries, whether they're charitable foundations like Queer Brewing, or whether they're full-on private companies that they're just in it for the profit, they're going to start to think more ethically, and they're going to start to hopefully put causes forward that matter to them.
Yeah, so that's that kind of cause, but also sort of championing saving the planet, being more responsible in how you sort of recycle and consume when you're making products. Yeah, man.
So, anybody that says, politics and beer don't mix is super fucking naive.
100%.
Beer is a political statement. If you drink independent, that's a political statement. If you don't drink independent, that's a political statement. Every sip that you have has some element of politics to it, and if we embrace that, we can make it do good. If we deny it, then we're just going to keep, going around in circles and never actually making the changes that craft beer claims that it will. And hats off to Lily for doing that so early on and for supporting so many great foundations and championing the cause of the trans community, particularly within beer, but also, without it. And I hope that loads more breweries are inspired by the work that's been going on in the last year and introduces that element to their breweries.
100%.
And we hoped at the Craft Beer Channel too. Last year, we talked about pastry stouts going out of style.
We did.
We were wrong. This year, I'm going to talk about pastry sours coming in.
Interesting.
Now, anybody in the States is probably like, that's already happened.
Mate, well, yeah. Like,
that was so 2019. And that's true. That was, it was a bit of an epidemic of can explosions from fruits being added to cans and then cans getting warm.
Bad boys, yeah.
Exactly. And you'll be glad to know we've had some of that in the UK now, so we know it's arrived. So pastry sours. What's a pastry sour? It's a quick sour in which you've added so much sweetness back in through adjuncts that it's not really that sour anymore. It's mostly sugary. Usually it's fruit purees. Okay. Vanilla.
Right.
Lactose is often used to fatten out the body, increase the sweetness. So it's trying to create almost a smoothie beer.
It's an all-out assault on the senses, isn't it?
Yes.
It's
yes,
like
it is.
Sweet to the max, sour to the max. It's going to make me make dolphin noises, isn't it, Johnny?
I think it probably is.
Look at the colour of it for a start. Come on, this is crazy.
Now, we've sounded quite dismissive here. A lot of them are a lot of fun. And we've really enjoyed Dig. You met the founder of Dig and nerded out about his can designs and his approaches. And
he's an artist, and he's a super cool guy, working on an operatic sort of piece around the world of medieval brewers, that were witches.
He's making an opera about medieval brewers.
Yeah, I think so. I was quite drunk when I met him.
I mean, that one's delicious. See, that one's got wonderful balance to it. Oh. So you've still got lots of acidity, loads of raspberry character. It says it's got vanilla in it, and I think I get a hint of that, but it's a nice little touch.
So it's got all those sort of fruity, jazzy, fizzy kind of notes going on. I've got a real sweet tooth as well, so I'm very much enjoying this.
So you're enjoying that one, because it's not overly sweet,
no,
but it's definitely got lots of vanilla to it, lots of sweet raspberry, but it's got that acidity in there still, and I think that's what a lot of people have got wrong. They go for that huge smoothie thing. We're obsessed with thick with 3 C's mouthfeel because of the New England IPA trend. And actually, I don't think these beers really benefit from that. They're better being crisp, more on the Gose Berliner Weisse style. You can really amp that fruit.
Yeah.
But the body doesn't necessarily need to be there. It can be crisp and clean.
Balanced, exactly
that. So in the UK, we've seen so many people start to brew these styles, some of them doing them extraordinarily well, some of them doing them extraordinarily poorly, some of them exploding in people's homes. But when they're done very well, they can be delicious. And I think over the next year, we'll be looking at some of the guys that are doing it really well. We've already spoken to Brick, who do it fantastically. And we'll be searching some more, because when it's done like this, it's a beautiful addition to the craft beer canon. So I hope that's given you an idea of where beer is going in the next 12 months. We're talking more bitterness, more crispness, more balance, more variety, and more good. How's that for a positive message at the start of 22? We started last year's by going, things can only get better. They didn't, but maybe.
2022.
2022.